Good afternoon, Matrix, and a very warm word of welcome to all of you to our telematics broadcast. Now, this today is for you is a very exciting and interesting year for you. The reason, therefore, is that you are the first Matrix to write the new structure of the geography examination. You know that the old theory and the old Mapwork question papers, these have been replaced by two new question papers. Paper 1, which would be physical geography, that's now climate and geomorphology, and paper 2, human geography, settlement and the economic geography of South Africa. Now, Mapwork will then be set as question 3 and will be integrated with the topics in papers 1 and papers 2. Now, today we will discuss the Mapwork section, in other words, question 3 of both the question papers. So, let us have a look at the question 3 or the Mapwork section. Now, you must remember that the Mapwork section is part of both question paper 1 and 2. Now, paper 1 will be 150 marks, 3 hours. That also goes for paper 2 as well. Then let's have a look at the content of each of the papers. Question 1, in paper 1 will be climate and weather for 60 marks. Question 2, geomorphology for 60 marks. Question 3, Mapwork for 30 marks, which will be the following: map skills and calculations, 10 marks, map interpretation, 12 marks, and GIS, 8 marks. Now, the question 3, you will see, is exactly the same as the question 3 in paper 2. Now, let's have a look at paper 2. Rural and urban settlements, 60 marks. Economic geography of South Africa, 60 marks. So, when we have a look at this matrix, you will see that question 3 in both of them, in paper 1 and paper 2, that will be 60 marks. In other words, a total of 20 marks for both paper and 1 and 2 together would be for map skills and calculations, 24 for map interpretation, and 16 for GIS. So, in other words, if we have a look at calculations, 1 or 2 calculations will be in paper 1, and another one or 2 will be in paper 2. Obviously, it won't be the same one that we will find in paper 1 and paper 2. Exactly the map skills also. You'll get 1 or 2 map skills in paper 1 and also in paper 2. And of course, it won't be the same map skills as well. Okay, so this is what we are talking about when it comes to the new question papers. But let us have a look at our question 3, the Mapwork section of both question papers. As I've said, firstly, there will be calculation and map skills. Now, the calculation and map skills we have presented to you last year already. So you can go and get the recording of last year and check up on your calculations and map skills. Application and interpretation, that will be the second one. And of course, GIS. Now, GIS, we will, in August this year, we will have broadcasts with regard to GIS. But this afternoon, Matrix, we are going to concentrate on the application and interpretation of the Mapwork, the types of questions and how can it be asked. Very important. And the reason why we're concentrating on that is the most amounts of marks allocated to application and interpretation. Okay, so this the next slide just want to show you. This is what the new topographic and orthophoto maps would look like. You will have a A4 a topographic map, and you'll have an A4 orthophoto map. Now, they will be printed on next to each other on an A3, right? And on the left-hand side, you have your topo, and on the right side, you have your orthophoto map. Of course, you will also have your key at the bottom, right? So this that we've got here, this is exactly what your map will look like at the end of the year in the examinations. Now, before I move over to what we really would like to discuss, I would just like to mention a few things to you. And I'm merely going to mention it because it's impossible to cover all these things in one broadcast. As I've said, this first one, calculations, has been done already. Now, the following calculations, Matrix, you must be in a position to do that. That's distance, area, gradient, vertical exaggeration, magnetic bearing, and magnetic declination. Now, it's very important here, Matrix, please remember, in your answer, you must use the correct unit. When you, for instance, calculate distance, your answer can't only be 50. It can't be 50 square kilometers. The correct one. You must use that, which would be kilometers, or if they ask you in the question to do it in meters, that would be the case. So please see that you use the correct units. Now, if you have a look at these 6 calculations, Matrix, if you don't know or you've got a struggle with some of them, please go back to your teacher and make sure that you can do these things. Now, just one thing I would like to mention to you. Please remember that you must follow the steps in every calculation. Every step, there's a mark that can be awarded to you. So this means that even if you get your answer wrong in, say, distance, for instance, the answer is wrong, and the calculation added, say, 4 marks, then you can get at least 3 for that. All right? So please see that you know the steps, that you follow the steps correctly, and that you measure accurately. That's the most important thing when it comes to distance, the area, gradient. It's very important that you must, your measurement must be 100%, that you can gain the maximum amount of marks. So that's all the calculations. The next thing is your map skills. You must be in a position to do the following map skills. You must be able to do this. Very important, Matrix. Firstly, direction and bearing. And as you see, these are map skills that come, some of them come as far as your primary school, right? Direction and bearing. Then the height, right? How you know, the ways in which height will be is indicated on the topographic map. Then your map reference. You must know grid reference. Cross sections you must be able to do, and that's very, very important skill, Matrix. Indivisibility. And the last one is the direction in which rivers flow. Now, if you ever look at those map skills, Matrix, just the same comment that I'm going to make that I made with regard to the calculations. If you struggle with all of these map skills, please go to your teacher. And these things you can only do this by means of practice, and practice. Both your calculations and your map skills, okay? So try to practice as many as possible of each of them and see that you can be successful at the end of the year. Okay, so we are going to start off with our real section for this afternoon, and that will be map reading and interpretation. Map reading and interpretation. Now, the first one that we've got is map reading. Now, you won't be able to interpret a map if you don't know how to read a map. And that's very, very important, right? And when you have a look at map reading, then it's about the same as when you are confronted with a comprehension test. Now, all of you somewhere, sorry, have done something like this, the comprehension test. And where they give you an extract that you must an article or something that you have got to read, and then they set a few questions. Now, the comprehension test here isn't important, but what do you do? How do you answer it? Now, there are 2 ways of doing it. The first thing that you can do is to read the text 2 or 3 times and then attempt to answer the questions. Now, if you read the text 2 or 3 times, then what's going to happen then is that you know the content of it. You know what's going on there, okay? And when you go to the questions, you'll see, but there are a few of those questions that I can answer without going back to the text because I've read the text. But then there's a second way of doing it. Let's have a look at that. The second way of doing your comprehension is to read the questions and then go look for the answer in the text. Now, you know that that is absolutely fatal because you don't know what the text is all about. And all you do is you read the question and then you go look in paragraph. Is that the answer? Is that the answer? But isn't that what you do in Mapwork Matrix? That's exactly what you do. What do? You take the map, you read question 1, and you look for the answer on the map. That's an absolute no-no, right? The first thing that you must do is, just as in the case of the comprehension test, that you must read the map. Very important. You must read the map in order to get a mental image of the map. Now, if you have a look at comprehension test, it's quite easy. You all can read this. Why? You know words, you know the alphabet, you know punctuation. So it's easy to read that. But how do we read a map? And Matrix, I would suggest that about 10 minutes, take about 10 minutes to read the map, because there are 5 things that you must read on a map. 5 things that you must look at on a map, that you must understand on a map, which will get you easier towards the answer and will allow you to answer the questions quite easy. So let's just have a look at these things. All right. What we call this reading method, we just call it the Ardais method. Now, what do we mean by the Ardais method? It's just the first letter of all 5 of them. Relief, D for drainage, I for infrastructure, S for settlement, and E for economic activities. Now, these are the 5 things, Matrix, that you will have to look out on the map, that you will have to check out on the map, and read the map by means of these 5 things. Now, let's have a look at this. The first thing that you will have a look at is relief. In other words, the brown. You must ask yourself, where are the mountains? Where are the valleys? Where is the highest point? Where is the lowest point? Now, if you've done that, Matrix, you know already a lot of the area, of the mapped area. Because you would know where's the valleys. You would know where's the mountains. You would know the physical features of that area before you even start looking at the questions. That's very important that you do that. Let's have a look at the next one. Next one that you have a look at is the blue. And you ask yourself, what drainage is there? Are there rivers? What types of rivers? Perennial rivers? Are there non-perennial rivers? Are there any dams? Is there a sea? What does the blue tell us of the climate of the area? In other words, if you see lots of dams, then you know that this is seasonal rain. Why? Because the farmer had to dam off the water for the drier season. So that's the blue. RDI, infrastructure. Have a look at the map. Ask yourself, where are the main roads? They are in red. The railway, where is it? In what direction does the railway and the road, do they follow the same route, and why? Infrastructure, RDIS, settlements. Have a look at the grey, the settlement, the build-up areas. The buildings will be in black. Usually also you get some of the economic activities, the industries you also get in the settlements also in black, right? But then the most important thing, before I come to the last one, is that you must have a look at the relationship between all these colors, right? The relationship. Very, very important. Let's have a look at the last one, then you'll see what I mean. The economic activities. Usually the farming will be in green, and as I've also mentioned already, the industries, that will be in black. Now have a look at this. NB, the relationships between all the colors. You know, Matrix, at the end of the day, your Mapwork question has to do with relationships. The relationships between the red and the green. The relationships between the gray and the brown, for instance. Let's just have a look at that. What is the relationship between the gray and the brown, for instance? You will always see that you will never find the gray on top of the brown because it's too high, it's too steep there. You'll rather find it in the valley, right? So it's very important that you have a look at that. You look at what is the relationship between the brown and the blue. They are rivers. You'll see that the blue never flows in the direction of the brown. It always flows away from the brown. There you've got immediately something of your direction of the rivers, because it always flows from high to low. Very important that you have a look at that. You look at your economic activities. You look at your farming. You say, okay, what is the relationship between the farming, by the green and the blue? Okay, they need water. The farmer needs water. Oh, that's the reason why it's along the river. Now, once you've done that matrix, let's have a look at these 5 again. The relief, the drainage, the infrastructure, the settlement, and the economic activities. You need 10 minutes, 2 minutes for each of them. Look at them. Ask yourself, where is it? Why is it there? What is the relationship between the brown and the blue or whatever? 5 of them, matrix, 2 minutes. This means it's going to take you about 10 minutes just to read the map. Now, after you have read that map, one very, very important thing happens. What's happening is that then you have a mental image of the map that has been asked, where the questions have been asked. Then you know what's going to happen. Exactly the same that happened in your comprehension test. There will be some questions that they ask that you don't need to go back to the map, because if you've read it, you've got the answers, right? So it's very important. Please, matrix, remember, what is the chances that you are going to get a map of your area? And the other side of the coin is, what's the chances that you are going to get a map of an area that you've never been in or you've never seen before, right? So how can you, for instance, answer questions of Paarl, right? If you are if your school is in Robinson and you've never been to Paarl before, you cannot do that because you don't know what Paarl looks like, right? And if you do these 5 things, if you go through these 5 things and read your map of the area, then at least you will know what the area looks like. Okay, so that's the map reading. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to look at an example where we are going to use this Ardai's method to get to an answer on the map. Now, what's very important before I go on with this is the following. That you know, when you do your Mapwork question paper, you usually have one problem. And that is when you read a question and you say, oh, but I don't know the answer. This method will show you one important thing. It will lead you to what to look at to get to the answer. And I would like to repeat that. You must know what to look at to get to the answer. If you've got your orthophoto and your topographic map here in front of you, and they ask you a question, I've seen this happen many times as a teacher especially, that when the children answer a question, they look for the answer on the whole map. This method will help you to zoom in on the specifics of a question. It will help you to zoom in into certain things that's needed to answer the question. And you can only do that if you have read the question, the map before you attempt the questions. So please remember that. Now, let us have a look at how can I apply this to a question. Right, here's the question. Discuss the factors that affected the location of the industries in Ceres. Now, what must I tell myself? I must say, right, there's relief, there's drainage, there's infrastructure, there's your settlements and your economic activities. All right, let's have a look at this. What's the questions that I must ask myself? It has to do with industries. I must know the other contours far apart. I must know the drainage. Is there a river to supply water? Infrastructure. It needs roads and railway lines. Power. Settlements that will supply labor and will also provide a market for what has been in the industries. Economic activities. The farming activities. Are there any farming activities? Or what activities? Mining. I'm just using this now because we've got the map of Ceres here. It could be mining activities as well. What are those economic activities? What role do they provide the raw material for the industries? Matrix, can you see what's happening now? If you didn't read the map, then you would look at the whole map for an answer. This is a specific question. And most of the questions, of course this won't work with all questions, but about 80% of the questions, the answer lies with those 5 things. And that you will be very specific in, that is what I've got to look for. And here we've got an excellent example of a question, and you know I must look at these 5 things to get to the answer. Let's have a look at the map of Ceres. Here we've got your factors that we've got here, all right? I've just put it on here, we'll come back to that now. And the question is, discuss the factors that affected the location of industries in Ceres. There's the map of Ceres. Here in this red dotted line, there are the industries. Now let's have a look at this. The factors, remember the previous slide, keep that in mind when we do that. Okay, the first one, R, relief. Have a look at that. The area is level. I don't even see one contour here. Relief, can you see R? I've looked at that first. Secondly, D, drainage, water. Here's a river going, right? Water. RDI, infrastructure. Here we've got the transport, railway line. We've got the road there. We've got power line. RDIS, settlements. What do settlements supply you? Labor, people can come and work in the industries, and also possible market. And then the last one, raw material, the economic activities in and around Ceres. Patrick, do you see how easy map work becomes now if you know what to look at to get to the answer? And I want you to repeat this question all the time while you are busy doing your map work. When you've got a map and you don't know what to do, you just ask yourself the question, what must I look at to get to the answer? And these 5 things, sometimes relief doesn't play a role. Sometimes infrastructure doesn't play a role. And then you're stuck with the other 3. Say, hey, I can write something of each of this. I can guarantee that you're at least going to score 1 or 2 marks in answering when you answer the question that way. Okay, so that is a question, but, and this is a but in capital letters matrix. Let's have a look at the question again. The question says, discuss. If you look at this, what we've got here, right? All these things we only mentioned, or we just gave the factors, right? That appear on the map. How do I answer this question? Now, Matrix, you've got to stay with me now, because this is the question that, you know, if you should read the exam reports, you will see this every year in the exams, right? That matrix don't know really how to use the action words, especially when it comes to discuss and explain. Right? Now, how do you answer this question? You can't only write that there's water, there's a level area, and all those things. There's no ways. You must refer to the map, and then you are discussing it. In fact, I think it's a good idea. That doesn't matter what you mention of a map or in your answer. If you can refer to the map, that would be a good thing to do. But when it comes to the discuss, let's have a look at the question again. Discuss the factors. Now, let's have a look at our factors again. The first one, how do you discuss it? You would say the following. The land, the area is level. Here we go now. Because the contours are further apart. You see what I've done now, Matrix? I have discussed or referred to the map to get to the answer. Let's look at another one. Water. There's a river running. Transport by means of rail and by means of road. Right? We've got labor from where? Here. From Ceres. Right? From the settlement. We've got market. Right? We've got that there also in Ceres. Right? The raw material. Wait, what is that? Raw material, fruit or vegetables from the farms around Ceres. Now you have discussed the question. So please, Matrix, too many of you lose unnecessary marks by not, really considering the action verb that's used. You must be able to know how to use all those verbs. So please have a look at that. And just before we carry on, remember what's the most important thing? Not looking at the map. From now on, I don't want to see any one of you, when they ask a question, trying to look for the answer on the map. The thing that you must do is, through your mind, what must I look at to get to the answer? Now we've got a problem. You know why? Because, I love saying that for your Mapwork part of your question paper, you must know your work better than for the theory part. Why? Because they're going to ask you to apply your theory, right? And so you must know your work, as you'll see in the next part of the presentation that I will get to. So you must do that. You must know your work. And please, I'm just going to repeat this again. What must I look at to get to the answer? Don't look for the answer on the whole map. Remember the 5 things, the R9 that we have spoken about. Okay, right. So let's carry on now with Mapwork and content. And what I'm going to do now, Matrix, is that I'm going to use examples of content and connect it to Mapwork, right? And let's just have a look at questions that could be asked. Now, I'm not saying these questions are coming in the exams. There are so many maps, so many questions can be asked. The most important thing is that these questions, I don't want you to only look at the answer that we are going to provide. You must use this as a skill. You must use this as a base on which any other question can be answered, right? Then you'll see, you follow the way in which we reason to get to the answer. This means that if you can do this, if you understand this, as I said, don't look at the content of the question. Look at how I got to the answer, right? We don't want you to only get to the answer of the questions that we're going to discuss now. You must be able to get to answer to any question by means of the Dutch discussion that we've got here this afternoon. Okay, so, but before you do that, Matrix, there's one very important thing, is that you must be able, the orientation of the map and the photo. You must know. For instance, you remember you're going to get both a photo, orthophoto and a map. You must, for instance, know that, okay, there's the track and that is the track on the orthophoto. There we've got the aerodrome, there's the aerodrome on the photo. Here we've got a horse riding club, there's it on the photo, right? And so forth. So if you've got these things, it's going to be very, very important for you. Why? Because remember, on the topo map, they're going to have a red or black block. And that block, that will represent the orthophoto, the area in which the orthophoto is covered. And you must be able to check the corresponding points on the orthophoto and on the topographic map. Very important that you must be able to do that. Right, so let's have a look at the first question. As I said, you'll have to put on your thinking caps this afternoon, because some of these questions you really will have to work out to get to the answer. Let's have a look at this question. You make a fire at, that's 11 o'clock the evening, at X. Right, so there's X. In what direction will the smoke blow? Now, your first problem is, where in the content will I find that answer? Right? Where in the content will I find that answer? And if you see in what direction will the smoke blow immediately, this has to do with winds. It has to do with which only winds can blow smoke, of course, right? And then you see, but hang on, the fire here is brown. And see, where is it? The fire is here on the slope, nearly halfway up the slope, the fire has been made. In what direction will the wind blow? And immediately you know, if they give you the time in the day and the evening, something with regard to anabatic and katabatic winds had to cross your mind, because that's the only content that fits this question. Let's have a look. What's going to happen now? You should know that during the evening, you've got your downslope movement of cold air. In other words, what's going to happen is that the smoke will blow down the slope. Now, can you see what's very important here? If you first, now I won't be able to do this with all the maps because this is time consuming. If you read this map, and then you would have noticed there's the brown, right? Let's have a look at the map. Here you would have noticed there's the brown. You'll see, but here, this must be the valley. There's the mountain, there's the valley. And if the smoke blows in this direction, it can only be the katabatic effect that we are talking about here. You see how your first thing, you must be able, as I say, to read the thing, but then you must connect it, what topic in your content has been covered by the question. Very important that you do that. Okay, so that was our climate question. Let's have a look at stream orders. This is here at the beginning of your geomorphology. You get stream orders, right? And it's very easy. You know, I can't sometimes believe that that Matric can't determine a stream order, because if you can count up to 4, you will be able to do it. Okay, it's easy. You must just understand how it's done. So let's have a look at this. So remember this, the previous slide, and this has been done in the first quarter. You must know that we've got first order streams. It looks like fingertips there at the end, right up there where the river starts. So that would be your first order streams. When you get 2 first order streams, then you will get, where they join the confluence, you get a second order stream. Right? A 1 and a 1 gives you a 2. Let's just follow this river. Here's the second order stream. Oh, what's happening now? Here's a first order stream coming. This is the only rule that you must remember. When 2 streams of the same order join, then it goes up by 1. 2 first order streams will become a second order stream. 2 second order streams will become a third order stream, and so forth. But when 2 streams of different orders join, then it goes through as the higher one. The highest one is then accepted. So if you've got a second order and a first order stream, the confluence at those streams, you will have a second order stream. When it's a third and a first, it will be a third. So the highest one, that's the one that it would be. Right. So if you go look at this map, then you'll see here 2 and 2, second and a second order gives you a third order. Third order plus a third order gives you a fourth order. Right? And that's very important. And if you look at this, they usually call this the geography mathematics, not geography mathematics, because if you ever look at this, only the first one is right. 1 plus 1, that gives you a 2. 2 plus 2 gives you a 3. But 3 plus 1 gives you a 3. Because remember what did we say? The highest one. All right? 3 plus 3 gives you a 4. And 4 plus 1 will give you a 4. Why? The highest one. Okay. So that's the idea. It's very, very easy, Matric. These are really easy marks for you if they ask a question of stream orders. The second question of geomorphology that I would like to share with you is very important. Perhaps the most popular question in Mapwork when it comes to geomorphology. That has to do with the following. In what stage or course is the river on the map? Now, there are 3 courses. Okay, the upper course, the middle course, and the lower course. And anyone could be asked to identify. Right? Now, I've just chosen for this one, I've chosen this course. Let's have a look. First, let's find out what's going on here and then decide on the course. The first thing that I see is the mouth of the river. And immediately if you see a mouth, it can only be lower course. Am I right? Okay? So that's important. What we've got. Let's see, we've got braided streams here. We've got meanders. This whole area is level. I don't even see any contours here. Here's lots of sandbanks. Why have we got such a lot of sandbanks? They can even ask you that question also. Deposition. Why deposition? Because the river is flowing very slowly. Can you see the questions that can all come from this? Let's have a look. We've got a broader floodplain. We've got a marsh, right? So these are all, these things is an indication that this river is in the lower course. Now, as I've mentioned, that any one of the three courses can be examined. If they ask give you a map where you see a lot of brown, you see a lot of short rivers, right? And steep, the contours close to each other, then it means that that's in a mountainous area. It means it's in the upper course. And you see waterfalls there. And then you must know that this is in the upper course. Not only know, but you must also be able to give reasons for your answers as we have given the reasons in this one. So Matrix, please, for your geomorphology, please prepare your longitudinal profile for rivers. It's very, very important. The upper course, the middle course, the lower course. Prepare it for your map work, but not only your map work. Remember that this is a very popular question in your theory part of the exams as well. Okay, let's move on to paper 2. These questions you would find in paper 1. Now the more physical one, your climate and your geomorphology. Let's move over to paper 2. Let's have a look at questions that could be set there. The first one would be a settlement one. Now have a look at this. Settlement geography. Now street patterns, Matrix, is a very, very popular question in your mapwork part of your question paper. Have a look at this. Here we've got your grid pattern. Here we've got the irregular pattern. And you must know the advantages and the disadvantages of all of them. All right? And the characteristics as well. Now, a popular question the past few years was that they would put an A at one street pattern, a B at the other one, and they would give you a table, right? And they would put A at the top of the table and B, and they would say, right, A, B, right? First one, you must identify the one, right? Second part of the table, give one or two characteristics. Following one advantage. Following one disadvantage of your street pattern. Can you see why I said in the beginning that for this part of the question paper, you must know your content very well, because it has to do with your application of your content on a map. Okay, so that was our first one when it came to settlement geography. But when it comes to settlement geography matrix, remember that the core of settlement geography would be your land use zones. And that's very, very important, that you must be in a position to identify with reasons the land use zones on the topographic or orthophoto map. Very important that you must be able to do that. So let's just have a look at these zones here. Now here I've got the map of Bethlehem. That's Bethlehem in South Africa. Okay, so what we've got here is, on this map, I've just put all the land use zones. And the questions that they could ask: identify, give a reason. Identify, give a reason. Identify, give one or two characteristics of. Those are the questions that you must expect when it comes to land use zones. So let's have a look at this. Here we've got the map, and the first one is the CBD. They would say, what is name the land use zone there? That would be the CBD. How do you know? Right? Look at this red here. Right? The main transport routes, the main roads meet here in the CBD. Is the most accessible part. Look at that. All the roads join here or meet here in the CBD. Very important. All right? So now we've got the CBD. The second thing that they can ask you is residential. Here we've got residential areas. Look, you can see they are colored usually gray, right? And usually you get a name. You've got Thronville and Smutsville that they've got here. The names of the residential area that you'll be able to identify. Then the industries. Here we've got industries. Okay. Now just remember what we've done at Ceres. Here we've got the industries. You see it's black, right? Why are they there? Can you see? Here we've got our railway line going there. Look at the very few contours there. In other words, it's level. Look at the red line going there. Can you see all those things that we did in Cirrus begins to make sense now on this map as well? Okay? So that is why in the beginning I told you, we're not interested in the answer here. We're interested in how did you get to the answer, right? And if you can tell me how did you get to that answer, and or you can give me a reason for that answer, then I know that you will be able to answer it on any other topographic map as well. Okay, so that was the industries. Let's have a look at this. Here we've got the commercial. That's a shopping center that we've got there. Here we've got the transition zone, or the zone of decay, right at the edge of the CBD, and then the rural-urban fringe. Now, in this on this map, they could ask you, for instance, what activities do we find in the rural-urban fringe? Have a look at this. Now, can you see again, Matrix? To answer that question, you must know the rural-urban fringe. You must know the activities. It's written in your textbook. It's written in your notebook. It is there. And it's in all the lessons that we send to you. Everything is there. All right? So let's have a look at this. So here we've got the rural urban fringe. What do we find there? Sewage works. We've got recreation. All right? We've got a golf course. We've got a cemetery. A showgrounds. We've got a racing track there. These are the things, the activities that you find between, remember the rural-urban fringe? You find that between the rural and the urban area, right? Where very slowly the characteristics go over into rural from urban. And these are the things that you get in the rural-urban fringe. Matrix, I hope that you see what we mean by this. If you can do this, if you can, these questions are not only content questions, it's also skills-based, okay? That you must have the skill to answer this question. And by means of the skill, get to any other question answers as well. Okay, there's one thing that I would also like to share with you. And this is the following. That if you look at a map, sometimes additional information is given to you that you must use to get to the answer. Now let's have a look at examples of additional information that can be given to you. Now when you look at your question 3, your Mapwork question, then there's one very important thing that you must notice, Matrix. And that is that you will get a map of South Africa to show where the area on the photograph is, on the map is located. Here we've got Emalaleni, right? And what's very important here, showing you where it is located, but more important, you will always get about 3 or 4 sentences just giving you some information about the mapped area. And it's very important, because if some questions, you know, so many candidates don't even read that. They dive right into question 1 without reading the information that could help them or be as background for the map. So let's have a look. I'm not going to read this everything, but if you have a look at this, here are 4 sentences of information that has been given to you. And the first question, the name Emalaleni, right, is a reflection of the mineral mined in the area. What does the place mean? What does the name of the place mean? Now, if you only had your topographic map and you started off with question 1, you would not have get to that answer. Where's the answer? Have a look at this. Established in 1890 as Witbank, the city is known for its coal mining in the surrounding region. I just highlighted that in red. So if you look at the question now, where does the name come from? Place of what? Place of gold? Place of gold? Place of coal, right? Because here that says here that it's a coal mining area. And if you look at the question, second question, why can the mineral mined in the map area be classified as a non-renewable resource? Now, Matrix, if you have a look at those two questions, those would be 1 or possibly 2 marks that you would have lost because you did not read this part of the question paper. Very, very important that you should read the information regarding the area. Okay, let's have a look at another example. Here we're going to look at the use of photos in the Mapwork question paper. You could even get, now please Matrix, I'm not saying that these things are coming in the exams. I'm just showing you how content can be tested by means of extra information that could be given you, right? The one will be there. What if they give you a photo? What if they give you a graph or statistics and you must answer the question with regard to the topographic map? Very possible. Let's see. So here we've got the map here. We've got the map of Paarl and we've got 3 photos. And you must match the photos 1, 2, 3 with ABC on the map. Now that's a very, very easy question. All right? More lower order question. A, here we see lots of black buildings here. Definitely industries. Aha, easy. 2. Photo number 2 will match A. If you look at B, here we've got red roads, you know, main roads, right? They are joining here, they're coming together here in the CBD. So that one would be B, the CBD, all right? But here we've got C, and there's written S, meaning a school. So that would be the building of the school. You see, that was very easy in that you just needed to look at the question, you needed to look at the map, and it was easy to connect them with each other. But what if they make it a little bit more difficult? Let's have a look at this. Here we've got also the use of photos in the Mapwork question. This would be definitely a difficult middle to easy higher order question that we are having a look at now. Here, study the photographs 1, 2, and 3. I'll show you that slide now. Refer to the topographic map. This is this here. The location of X, Y, and Z is given for each of the photographs. Right? Once you have located the feature, read the statement and respond by stating true or false. Provide a reason for each answer as you using map evidence. Now, this is a photos. You'll see it's mostly the same photos in the previous one, but see how more difficult the question is. They say here, photo number 1, the location would be X. Let's go back. So there it's located, right? So what do they say about it? The statement, the CBD is the most accessible part of Paarl. Of course, that's true, right? If you go back to it, you'll see it's exactly there where the CBD is, so it will be true. Give a reason for your answer. You will say, but look at the roads, right? The roads, if you look at the many roads, definitely it's the most accessible part of Paarl. Have a look at this one. This is Y. Let's see on the map, where is Y? That is where Y is located, on the mountain, right? And let's have a look. What's the question? Y says, the landform is called the mesa. The height of the mesa is 543.1 meter. Now, can you see? You must know your work to get to that. That is not a mesa, right? Now, when you have a look at this, you would know that this thing, if you read the Paarl map, you would see that there are a few domes there, all right? And on the map it's there, right? And of course you'll say, no, that's no ways that could be your mesa to find them. Have a look at the next one, all right? Here we've got this one. They say that would be at Z. Sorry, here we go, all right? There we've got the S, a school. Okay, but what does the statement say? A light secondary activity. Now, if you look at a light secondary activity, that's nowhere. So this would be false. So give a reason for your answer. That is a tertiary activity. Okay, so you see what photos can be used actually and remember all these features are on the map, right? It's easy to connect them to the map. I would like to have a look at this. What about using graphs in a mapwork question? And that's very important, right? What if they gave you, this is Mapwork, what if they say, okay, this is the population of Mapwork, right? We've got about 7,000 in 2011, and look at that, in 2013, about 3,000, a little bit more than 3,000. Is there increase or decrease? Of course, there's a huge decrease, nearly half the population. All right? And the question is, why are so many people leaving the town of Mapwork? Now, remember that you do this, right? You do your rural depopulation and your rural urban migration, meaning there's no employment. You can't. Let's first go through this: education, shops, entertainment, other industries, mining, farming, resources. And if you look at the map, you find very few of this, right? Industries, yes, no. Now, this is an extract of the map, but I can promise you, really, there are no industries, very few industries. Farming, no farming activities. Very few or no resources there. So you see, again, what content of the map is covered here. Definitely that would be rural depopulation. When you saw the statistics, it had to cross your mind. Okay, right. Now, the last one that I would like to share with you is the use of weather map in a mapwork question. Now, this question, Matric, is a higher order question. You've really got to think to get to this answer. Let's have a look. Which of the runways A or B, this A, this B, at Port Elizabeth Airport will be used for an airplane to take off during the weather conditions shown on the simplified weather map? Now, if you have a look at this weather map that I've drawn here now, what I've done was I just took the two station models out and showed you where's PE, and this was exactly the station models that were there on that day. So this is Port Elizabeth. Look at that. Look at the wind direction. They're northwesterly. Wind direction southwesterly. What does that tell you? Now you have learned in your movement of cold fronts over an area, the weather changes. You have learned that the weather changes from northwest to southwest. It backs from northwest to southwest. And if you couldn't make that connection, you can't get to this answer. That's why this is a higher order question. Now have a look at this. The question is that which one of those two runways will they use? Remember, the front has not moved over Port Elizabeth yet. In other words, the northwesterly wind. There we go. And remember that the name of the wind is from which direction the wind blows. So this means they would definitely use runway B for the plane to take off. That's very important. But if we look at, say, a day later, then the cold front has moved over P, right? This means this year will be the weather conditions, not that one anymore, behind the front. Post-frontal conditions will be in Port Elizabeth. This means a southwesterly wind. So we've got our southwesterly wind. So if a plane lands, oh yes, this is what I've forgotten to mention. Planes take off and land against the wind. Okay, please remember that. Okay, you'll see when it took off against the wind northwesterly. Now it's going to land again against the wind. See what happens. So what the plane will do, it will come and it will land against the wind. Can you see what questions can be asked here? Okay, think when you have these type of questions. I would just like to wrap up the session by telling you that please remember, when you are doing the Mapwork section of a question paper, there are certain things that you need, that you've got to pack your bag. You need a pencil to draw the cross section. You need an eraser to rectify your mistakes. You need a ruler to measure your distance. You need a protractor to measure angles for bearing. You need a calculator for calculations. And if your eyesight isn't good enough, you are allowed to use a magnifying glass if needed. Please pack all these articles in your bag the evening before you go and write your geography exam, because remember, you're going to need it for both paper 1 and paper 2 this year. That's it for this session, Matrix. From my side, I wish you well for Matric for this year. I know it's going to be difficult, right? And let us try to make this the best year of your life. Thank you, and take care till next time. Bye-bye.